Welcome everyone to the Social Entrepreneurship in Tourism panel. We're going to be addressing social entrepreneurship in this time of crisis. My name is Veronica Black. I'm going to be your moderator today. I'm the head of environmental programs at the TUI Care Foundation, and I'll be joined by my wonderful panelists, Professor Dr. Claudia Brösel, professor at the University of Sustainable Development, Eberswalde, Miguel Figueroa, the investment specialist from UNWTO, the World Tourism Organization, Stella Nakawuki Luwago from the Social Innovation Academy, and Joost Neumann from the TUI Care Foundation, the head of economic development. So before we dive into the discussion and the presentations that we have prepared for you today, just want to mention some housekeeping points. Please make sure that your cameras are turned off if you are not a panelist. Please make sure to keep yourself muted at all times throughout the presentation and throughout the session. And we encourage you to use the live chat as much as you'd like to share comments, ask questions, post files that you think are relevant to the conversation, and engage with one another. So also note that the session is being recorded and we will likely post it online after the event. Thank you very much. So we're all here to talk about social entrepreneurship. Some of you might be entrepreneurs, some of you might be supporting business partners or just individuals interested in social entrepreneurship. So just so we make sure that we all know what we're talking about, on the next slide, you'll see a definition about what social entrepreneurship is. On the next slide, please. Thank you. So this is just a definition by the European Commission, defined in 3 bullets. But as you can see, social is really at the core of everything. So the business, the process, the people. So there's always a social driver behind every social enterprise. And the main driver is really the common good and impact, creating impact, positive impact for people and planet. So this is what the TUI Care Foundation also supports through the Social Entrepreneurship Competition in Tourism. And now I'd like to hand over to Joost to give us a brief introduction about this competition.
Hi guys, really nice to see so many interested people here joining this session today. We are very excited to talk about social entrepreneurship today, why it's important and whether it's an opportunity in times of terrible crisis. And also we want to use this session to highlight the social entrepreneurship competition that we are running this year together with the University for Sustainable Development in Eberswalde, supported by UNWTO, and also in partnership with a number of other great partners, including the Social Innovation Academy based out of Uganda, Travel Massive, as well as ITB. So without going into too much detail, everyone who's considering applying for this competition, every social entrepreneur who already has an established enterprise today or wants to establish an enterprise in the future, please stay on the call with us, because after the session, we'll have a 15 minutes Q&A, as you see here, where we'd be happy to answer your questions or comments that you would potentially have. We'll also share the link to the competition in the chat, so feel free to check it out. There's 2 more weeks to go until the application window is closing. So get started and join us for this competition. Thank you. Let's get started.
Thank you, Joost. So we're moving now to the presentation discussion portion of the event. Before getting started with the first presentation, I'd like everyone wait in the session to turn their microphones on mute, first of all, and to ask the panelists to introduce themselves, starting with Claudia.
So hello, everybody. It's great to see how many people are here and interested in our topic. So my name is Claudia Brösel. I'm since 2012 at the University for Sustainable Development in Eberswalde, and my idea after 30 years in the tourism industry was to change something, let's say, in the idea of education and the Social Entrepreneurship Competition is one thing. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Claudia. Moving on to Miguel.
Hello, everybody. Hope you are doing well and you are healthy in this time. My name is Miguel Figueroa. I am the investment principal at the UNWTO, and I work with different stakeholders trying to promote investments in a higher level with the countries that we work with, but also with entrepreneurs as yourself. So happy to answer any questions and help you and learn from you guys.
Thank you, Miguel. And now Joost.
Yeah, thank you. Am I on mute? No, good, great. Hi guys, Joost speaking here from Berlin. I'm working with TUI Care Foundation since almost 3 years as the head of economic development, looking after our wonderful portfolio of projects that we have all across the world to empower entrepreneurs and enterprise support organizations. Really happy to be part of this conversation.
Thank you, Joost. And last but not least, Stella.
Yes, thanks everyone. My name is Stella. I'm connecting in from Uganda. I'm happy to be part of this tourism competition, and super excited to meet all of you. And I think you'll be hearing more about me later. But I'm very passionate about sustainable development. I'm a social business consultant, and I think I have a lot to learn from everyone else today. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Stella. And actually, we're going to see a presentation from Stella. Maybe you can get started. So to kick off the discussion, Stella's going to present what they are working on.
Yeah, so I'm from the SINA Social Innovation Academy, partly the SINA Village, where we empower young marginalized refugees, former sex workers, school dropouts, to help them realize their fullest potential through creating social enterprises that benefit their communities, their environment, and the community. Yeah, so SINA is all about that, but we also love to share our culture and also share our passions and uniqueness with different people over the world. Yes, just like in those pictures. Next slide, please. Yeah, so this is our empowerment model. This is our empowerment model. And so we have what we call the confusion stage when our scholar comes in the first time, where we focus on changing limiting beliefs and personal development and finding out who they are. The next stage, we have emerging stage where it's about professional and personal growth, and also youth taking up leadership and responsibilities within the communities. Then we have the concentration stage that is about developing the ideas and social enterprises. And then the acceleration stage where we are bringing the idea to life. And here it's intense to see that the business is viable. And when you go through after this stage, you become a master where you're graduating. And this whole process takes between 1 to 3 years because we are all different and people have different paces. Ours is we promote responsible and purposeful tourism. Just like you see, when our guests come to our center, they interact with our scholars, while at the same time, they also learn our culture from us. So it's a win-win for both. And it's not only about sleeping or accommodation, it's more than that. Yes, next slide, please. So our packages at the SINA Village, we have what we call the Purpose Safari, where our guests come and interact and teach, facilitate, share their experiences with our scholars. Then we also have the accommodation, and when you come to our space, you sleep in upcycled houses made out of plastic bottle houses. Then we also have what we call the Social Innovation Museum. That is the fastest of its kind in Uganda. And also we've been featured in the Ethiopian In-Flight magazine as the one place to see in Kampala in one day. And also we have customized tours, and then you also have a chance to see our online and offline shops where we have straws like those ones for our roots. And these are award-winning social enterprises. Next, please, Veronica. So our accommodation per night is 25 in a plastic bottle hut, and then USD 15 in a traditional African hut. It's very cheap. Next. Yeah, so these are some of the social enterprises that have been able to come out of SINA, where our guests, together with the community, transform communities together. So we have organics, we have all those Reform Africa, Uptake Africa, Chafe Coffee to Sufficient, Infant Health, Our Roots, and Chimoli. All these are global winning enterprises, social enterprises, and we are very proud to say that we've been part of their journey from the beginning. Yes, please. Next, Veronica. Yeah, so the entrepreneurs supported the amazing. This is what one of our customers from California had to say about us, and also other people had some good reviews. Next. Yeah, so when you come to our space, community members become tourists, and guests who come to SINA become community members instead of tourists. So they're able to integrate into the community, which we offer rich experiences, and then together they also give us the experiences, and they feel a sense of belonging and deep insights into the life of marginalized young people who are creating the best possible futures for themselves and their communities. And then all our 100% of revenues flow into our social cause, because we have to develop those social enterprises we shared with you before. Yes, next, please. Yeah, so our impact, we've so far impacted over 325 and more scholars. We've created different social enterprises, and also we've created over 164 jobs, but we could even report that just for this year, we created even more than 200 jobs. Yes. So do you remember our empowerment model? I think you do, the one that had 5 stages. Yes, continue. Yeah, so we think that if we could create more SINA villages all over Africa, then we could be able to create 50,000 jobs by 2030. And when we are talking about 50,000 jobs, we're not talking about just these simple jobs. We are talking about really jobs that can change communities, where community members are able to take and experience good education, having good health, hospitals, having good roads, markets for their produce. So it's not just any low quality jobs. We're talking about real jobs which can transform communities and Ugandan economy and Africa at large. Next. So our intention is that was our intention of creating different SINAs with 100,000 investments, and we think that when we work with TUI Care Foundation, we could actually be able to realize that. This slide, we created it last year when we were part of an acceleration by TUI Care Foundation, and it was really, really a good experience for us. Yeah. Please remember that the more SINAs we create, the more SINA villages we create, the more communities we impact. And you might be surprised that maybe there will be a SINA village next to you in your community very soon. Yes. Next, please. Yeah, so those who are coming to Uganda and those who are coming to DRC, especially Kinshasa, Zimbabwe, Kenya, please be expectant and to experience our SINA concept, and also to take part in our programs. So that is our team of wonderful people. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Stella, for that wonderful presentation on what you're doing. Like SINA, we love to share and empower culture, passion, uniqueness, and of course, innovation. So thank you very much for that presentation. Now we're going to be moving on to the discussion portion of the event. And I'd like to start off by saying, I mean, we've talked about social entrepreneurship. We know what it means. We want to really, it's all about engagement and really having an impact wherever this business is created. So what does this mean for tourism destinations? How does social entrepreneurship look like when applied to the tourism sector? And for that, I'd like to ask all of our panelists today, starting with Joost. What does social entrepreneurship mean for you when applied to tourism?
All right, thank you so much. I believe that social entrepreneurship is really an important tool to support tourism and entrepreneurs in general to achieve the sustainable development goals that were set out by the United Nations. And we all need and want to achieve them by 2030. And we have seen across the globe, social entrepreneurs really make a big difference for inclusion, for bringing marginalized people into jobs, but also creating direct impact for people when it comes to creating income opportunities, when it comes to really connecting the traveler with authentic and local experiences, which is something we also see from the commercial perspective is definitely increasing in demand. And at the end of the day, for example, the Future of Tourism Coalition, which is headed by the Travel Foundation, is putting out a couple of principles, one of them being the community-centered design of tourism. So we all need to become more community focused. We all need to become more aware of creating local value that stays with the community. And I think social entrepreneurs are on the forefront of doing that. And our mandate and our goal is really to recognize them, first of all, and to give them the tools they need to execute nicely, to make that revenue that they need. Because at the end of the day, the big difference is not being an NGO, but really being having a market-based strategy in place. That means creating revenue. And that's what we all should be supporting them in order to get that model off the ground and get them the funds they need as well. So that's it from my side.
Thank you, Joost. You mentioned community, you mentioned raising funds. I think those are two very key points. Maybe moving on to Claudia. Can we get your perspective on that?
Thanks a lot. So I think you said a lot, but maybe I can add a quote from Einstein. You can never solve problems with the same mindset that has created the problem. So what we try to do in our University for Sustainable Development for a long time, we try to focus on new skills for the 21st century. And that is maybe also the thing that could help to develop a new transformed tourism. So this is focused on the 4 C's. That means critical thinking, creativity, collaboration, and communication. And if I look at the presentation from Sina, I can find all the 4 C's there and combined in a really good form. So what I think what we need is really to transform tourism development, that we all have the possibility to travel, but not only one part of the world, also other parts of the world, and that we can learn from each other. And I think if we're following the SDGs and the development that we try to create at the moment, after this pandemic, we have a very good starting point to change things. And I can see that overall, like Venice or Amsterdam or other locations where you can see that we start from a different point when the pandemic is, maybe we can overcome it, I don't know it exactly, but when we have learned to live with it. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. And in terms of, I mean, tourism is also a massive force for resource mobilization and connecting people. Maybe Miguel, you can talk a little bit about that and how UNWTO is doing that, specifically on resource mobilization. So accessing funds and through tourism, supporting social entrepreneurship.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's a big topic. As you all know, the tourism sector is labor intensive. It's one of the natures and that means that there's a lot of hands, faces, hearts, people around it, and also is one of the most human-centered sectors right out there. So when we talk about social entrepreneurship, I feel like it's a powerful tool to create and deliver this value to different people. And as the professor was mentioning, is important to understand what are the needs that we are solving, and what are the problems that we are trying to to solve. From the resource mobilization, if you ask me from an investment, with my investment hat, I would say that everything is about the traction in the market. So, and what does that mean for the entrepreneurs is like, as long as you have like a product or a service that is out there in the market, and you have customers and you have a demand, and you are satisfying that customer, either not just economically, but also socially, or environmental, or whatever it might be, your indicators related with social entrepreneurship, I think that is a good sign. Because at the end of the day, if you are looking to raise money with an investor, they will be looking at those metrics, and either if those metrics are not just economic, they could be, social goals that you might have. So that is one of the things that the investors look at. And then of course there is other kind of financial mechanisms for different entrepreneurs, depending of where is the stage of your business, and depending of what kind of business it might be. So it's a very broad questions when it comes to analyze the businesses. But the bottom line, if I can give you some advice, is like just to try to focus on solving a problem or satisfying an urgent need within the community. And if you are serving this segment of people, just try to create traction to raise money on that. And then I can give you more examples later on.
Yeah, and we're going to get into that a bit later on in the session. Thank you, Miguel. So now maybe shifting back to the current crisis and what impact that has had on entrepreneurship, and specifically social entrepreneurship. Maybe Stella, you can tell us a little bit more about that and how you've been working with the entrepreneurs during this crisis that we're facing.
Yeah, so yeah, SINA has different social enterprises, and because every person has different problems they're trying to solve for their communities. So when COVID had just hit, we had a challenge, like everyone was panicking. So we didn't know how every social enterprise was going to be affected. But what was affected more was, first was the SINA village itself. Guests could not come in. But then our other enterprises, for example, the one that makes repellent soap, malaria repellent soap, instead was boosted. I think it made its highest sales during the COVID time, because the product they had at that time was so relevant, because everyone in Uganda most people could not afford buying sanitizers, but they could afford buying a soap that could do two things at the same time: keep them clean, away from COVID, but also help them with the malaria problem in their families at home. Remember, everyone was at home. So a product like that somehow pivoted, had increased sales in revenue. And then there's another product for our Roots Africa that was making biodegradable straws from luseke grass. So all restaurants were closed, cafes were closed, but then they had to pivot. So since everyone was home, they pivoted to making 100% natural compostable rugs made out of banana fibers. And since most women and men were home and they needed something comfortable, something good for the environment, something cool, the revenues also increased. So for us, COVID hit us differently, but also it hit those who weren't willing to pivot or change something in their businesses, in their social enterprises more than others. we have this that businesses do not fail because of money, they fail because of ideas. So COVID really showed us that those who weren't thinking more, who weren't being creative, who weren't collaborating, actually things didn't move well for them, while others, things changed. Yes.
Yeah, you mentioned pivoting, and I think that that's a really key word in what you're just talking about. Do you have any tips on what does that really mean? So does that mean being more flexible? Does that mean looking at other customers?
Yeah. Yes, I think it's also for you as a social business, looking at yourself, how relevant you can stay in a certain condition. For example, it's COVID time. You as a company, you have to sit back and rethink and re-strategize. You might not divert from the goal. For example, our Roots Africa that was making very cool drinking straws is still making sustainable products. But what did they do? They had to pivot. They were like, okay, so what is happening right now? Everyone is home. How can we still be having our goal of reducing plastic waste and helping the environment to be more sustainable, while at the same time we are making revenue? So they creatively communicated, collaborated with other people. They had references from different people, and before we knew it, sales were going up again. So I think it's also flexibility, adaptability, and really also maybe communicating and collaborating and not having this fear that when you share your idea, people are going to steal it. I think also sometimes we have that fear as social entrepreneurs that if I share my idea, people are going to steal it. Yet in actual sense, human beings love to help one another. That's how we are. These other things just come from I don't know where. But the moment you're able to communicate and also ask your customers what this can do for them, magic happens.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Stella. And I saw Claudia nodding her head in agreement that, I mean, as an academic, also you're sharing knowledge, and a lot of it is about sharing knowledge. So maybe you can share a bit your views on that.
I really like that. Thank you very much, Stella, for that, because it also needs courage to go out and share your ideas or your dreams and to share that with others. And mostly we say, okay, we keep it for us, that no one is stealing the idea, but if you share it, it can grow in a better sense. So I think there's a lot of creativity in that. What you also said, going out, sharing your ideas, but also finding new markets. Yeah. And okay, we are suffering all in the tourism industry at the moment, but you changed a little bit your business model, and therefore it could continue in a certain way, maybe not in that way that you wished before, but still you cannot sit down and just wait till something happens. Yeah, that is a great thing. Thanks for the example. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And I mean, it might also be easier said than done, shifting, rethinking. Sometimes it does require financial resources that might not be available all of a sudden. If you have no customers because you're relying so much on tourism and so much on one customer, you will panic, and you need to try to find the resources and try to find your way through that. So I kind of want to shift the conversation back to investments, and how do social entrepreneurs access investments? How do they access grants, which, despite there being a pandemic, did exist and there were some resources available. So I wanted to ask Miguel, how does a social entrepreneur raise investments in or raise funding during a pandemic?
Yeah, that's a question that we are asked every day now. And it depends. I don't like usually the answers with that, with that sentence. It depends, but it depends of your ecosystem, wherever you might be at. So it depends of like, if you're in Uganda, like you might have like a entrepreneurship and innovation ecosystem around you, where you have like angel investors, so you have incubators, accelerators that might have some resources, and sometimes even the government, they have some programs. And in this time during the pandemic, there's a lot of issues of lack of liquidity from the entrepreneurs, right? So the first thing is to see your ecosystem, and the second thing is sometimes when we ask the entrepreneurs, what do they need money for, you know, like, and that is like maybe a simple question, but it involves so many steps on regards their goals, on regards the capacity to execute different resources that they might have down the road. It depends of the kind of investors that they are trying to get. You know, sometimes they need some deviations to the markets. Other times they need some capital to buy it and acquire more assets, or they need contacts to scale their businesses. So everything comes down to what do you need the money for. Then the other question that I usually ask is in what stage is your business, right? So there are different avenues that you can apply. So if your business is looking, for instance, under 50K or 100K, depending on where you are, there are like basic institutions that they can help you with that. But if you are looking for bigger kind of sizes of checks, there are other spectrum of investors like the venture capitals that they are able to fund that. But if you are trying to target those kind of investors over 100K, depending again where you are, the questions might change, right? They will ask you for traction in the market. They will ask you issues, topics related with your technology, with your IP, and so forth and so on. But the basic level, I believe, are like the government grants. That's one. Then there is another layer from the ecosystem to render to your business. That means incubators, accelerators, the programs that you run. I think it's amazing. It's a huge opportunity to do that as well. And then once you hit certain goals in your business, I think you can try to go to the next level, which are mostly like formal and smart kind of investments as well. I would love to know more of the context of the entrepreneurs that are there. Of course, you can contact me later on, but from what I hear, I think it depends of your ecosystem, but these kind of initiatives that you are running, I think are very commendable to get started in this process. And then once they validated their business model, they try to create this product market fit that Stella was sharing. I think we can take it to the next level. And in this context also, just to finish this part, there is a lot of opportunities from the governments. Most of the governments are trying to solve their health issues right now, but the next big task is the economic problems that we might have everywhere. So I think you should be actually ready, because there will be a lot of programs that we have never heard before. And there's a lot of resources out there, and that is different from other kind of crisis, right? So because it's different sectors that have been hit the most, but then there's other sectors that are thriving right now, and there's a lot of flows of capital into the entrepreneurship and innovation, especially if you have an idea, if you are able to pivot, as Stella was sharing, to a more sustainable, to a more technological entrepreneurship. I think there is a huge opportunity down the road as well.
Thank you, Miguel. And you mentioned there's so much to unpack there. And like you said, it really depends on everyone's individual situation, but I think you gave us a nice overview and general feedback on that. I'd want to ask Joost, because of course the Tree Care Foundation, Joost being the head of economic development, he really had a vision to empower entrepreneurs, and especially much more during the pandemic. And I just want to hear from you why it's so important, and what are the barriers or what are the challenges that you've seen and are trying to overcome with the different programs of the TweetCare Foundation that developed last year.
Yeah, thank you so much. Like, first of all, connecting, I think what Stella said and also what Miguel said just now in terms of pivoting and in terms of raising funds, it is really important for social entrepreneurs to have a look out for grants, because that's great for the nature of a social business to be very much eligible for government support programs, for grants where you can raise funds to support to a crisis. And the social business is very much in a position to support relief or recovery programs because of the impact they are having. And that makes them a very good partner and implementing partner for governments who are looking to provide relief, who are looking to provide recovery for their communities, to be in that position of supporting and partnering with foundations like the TweetCare Foundation, but also with governments, with family offices, even with impact investors that would be interested in actually supporting the recovery and relief of the community. So that's one thing that kind of also differentiates a social business with a traditional business, that this first and foremost social impact and the impact-driven purpose is really a value proposition that is more and more being recognized by capital as well. So that is one thing. And just as an example, we have a long-standing partnership with the social enterprise in Marrakesh. It's called Bicala, a social enterprise that is offering bicycle tours and bringing a lot of youth education into the business model. And they have been pivoting in times of crisis. Obviously, there were no bicycle tours to offer because there were no tourists. So what they did was using the bicycles to distribute food packages, or using the bicycles to deliver goods to people who were locked down and had not the mobility to access certain services. So for them, it was a time to pivot. And as Stella said, it was a time for new idea. And that creates strategically for them a new value proposition of becoming a delivery service, which the crisis made basically paved a little bit the way for them to establish a new revenue model, for example. So I think the creativity, the ever creation of ideas is really crucial and most important. And that's what social entrepreneurs are really, really good at as well, because they are continuously innovating socially and technologically to drive that impact. And that is in need and in high demand when it comes to a crisis that we see right now. So just to say that whatever we try to do as TweetCare Foundation with the Social Entrepreneurship Competition that we support this year, or the COVID-19 relief program that we have set up together with NPACT, financed by GIZ and the German government, and also UNWTO is continuously doing entrepreneur support programs. The latest launch of the Rural Tourism Startup Competition is also, these are the kinds of tools and support services that we stand for and that we really like to support and create as TweetCare Foundation, and that we would encourage everyone to have a look out and find their peers, find their supporters, build their network with investors, donors, and build that brand to be able to create that vision that we all share of a more sustainable future, not only of tourism, but of the whole globe.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And it's funny because actually today's session is a result of our Linking and Learning web series from last year, where the goal is really to link and learn from one another, even during the pandemic. And today, this session and the startup competition is really how we created following all those connections. So we had Claudia as part of one of the sessions last year. So it just shows that linking and learning from one another, sharing ideas, leads to co-creation. So I think that's a really nice message that that we want to bring across in this panel as well. And maybe going back to Claudia, I mean, you are the academic representative in this panel, and academia really has an important role in innovation and the innovation ecosystem. So I wanted to know from you, how do you see the role of academia, and what support services exist for social entrepreneurs?
So what I asked myself was, in the beginning, when I started at the university, it's not so long ago. So my experience in the industry is around 30 years, and I saw the problems, and that we always tried to talk about it. And there's an NGO who is talking about it, and so on and so on. But we didn't went to the roots of the problems. And then I asked myself, if you can learn to work, let's say, with impact-driven business, and this means that you really have to look at how are people learning, and if they want to learn, to make tourism or tourism development in a different sense. And then we started in my university, I started together with a colleague from Ashoka, the first social entrepreneurship and innovation module in Germany. So I just looked it up. I had a master thesis from one of my students in 2019, and she was writing and researching about social entrepreneurial intention formation amongst tourism students in Germany. It was focused on Germany, but what she found out was that most of the tourism courses, like in bachelor or master, we have a master program, but most of the other programs, they mentioned somewhere a little bit sustainability, but are focused on a complete different thing and different development. And what we are doing, she data were collected in her thesis from 164 tourism students in Germany, and she found out that most of these students are a little bit, let's say, desk-oriented. They see the problems are discussed in the education, from the education side, but they don't have a possibility or an idea how to get things solved. And here social entrepreneurship comes in the game, but most of the universities have no programs till now. So this was one thing, to create a module for that, but the other thing is also to create this this competition. And if you are in, let's say, in a competition and you go for your idea, I think you can learn a lot also from each other. This is what we also had last year, that all the participants said it was so great to be part of this network of people. It's not about winning, it's about learning. And this is a really good thing. And I also include my students in the competitions since the first year. So we always have students who are working with us. And this is also a great opportunity, not only to learn from the theory, but also to learn from doing something with people from all over the world. And I also think that the possibilities are really different. So if you look at Germany, we do not have such a lot social entrepreneurs in tourism, but if you look in other countries, maybe it is more obvious to work in this field. So I would like to mix it a little bit more up. I give a lot of people the possibility to participate, but also to learn from the experiences from others. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Claudia. Connecting and learning from one another is really the key message here, as we can see. So thank you all for sharing your thoughts on social entrepreneurship, some of the challenges and the tools that are out there. I think now we're going to be moving to our Q&A session. So we already see some questions coming in the chat. Unless they're directed at specific panelists, then anyone feel free to answer it. So the first one is coming from Julia Rollins. Do you see examples where social enterprises are helping mainstream tourism businesses address their social and environmental impacts so that communities and ecosystems benefit as much from tourism as tourism benefits from the natural and cultural assets? Any takers?
Yeah, Stella here. So personally, I think it depends on what kind of social enterprise the person is thinking of venturing out. So different social problems require different social enterprises. So it really depends. Maybe examples, I can say that for us, maybe at SINA, all our social enterprises must benefit the community, the individuals themselves, and the environment. So that is a criteria that for you to create a social enterprise in our academy, you must be having a win-win-win, 3 times, 3 wins. So while I could give some examples, I'm thinking that there are very many different social enterprises all over the world that really tackle social problems and then create impact, while at the same time also making money for themselves to sustain and also for individual profits, which is absolutely okay. And I think that is the way where the world should go, in my perception.
Mhm.
So maybe someone else can add on that, but I think that when also it comes to these social enterprises growing, scaling, it also depends on how ready are they for investments. Like maybe, for example, our Roots Africa was not ready for a bigger investment within their first 3 months of starting out. Even if you ask them, so if we gave you 50,000 USD, what would you use it for? They would not know at that time. But maybe because of some experience, they are now more ready. They've incurred challenges, they've faced problems, and now they've also been able to have a little bit more experience. They now know where they want to go. So it actually depends. And of course, when given some funding, some support, some increase in sales, all those increase impact at the end of the day. And impact for who? Impact for the communities, impact for the environment, impact for the individuals. So everyone wins in one way or the other. Thank you.
Thank you, Stella. I'm going to move quickly through the questions so that we can try to address all of them. This one's directed at Miguel. So you said there will be many new funding programs targeting innovation and social entrepreneurship. Which sources should we be looking at, and why do you think this has not been a growing trend over the past decade or at the recovery of the past global crisis?
Really, really good question. 2 questions there. So in a nutshell, I was fascinated to see when we were disaggregating the data of investments on the VC sector. There are a lot of startups that have growing in terms of investment in the tourism sector, like almost, exponential, like the last 4 years. And this is different than other crises because the pandemic accelerated the process towards green transitions. And there is a lot of new innovations that came to solve these problems of air quality, energy issues with hotels, different ways to see and measure the density of people and so forth and so on. And the other big piece was that a lot of the tourism sector that are coming back to normality-ish are focused on rural tourism, and they're trying to promote the biodiversity, but not in the way as a destination, but in a way from the science perspective. They are trying to measure the biodiversity indicators within that location, and they are partnering with other organizations that are research-based, and they are other investors, and they are trying to create these value propositions that are different from others before. So there's a lot of opportunities in green for the next decade. There is also research that the new demand that we might have in the next 10 years are Generation Zs, and those are more native digital. They like to have more frequent trips. They are more green, and they like experiences. So if you build your value proposition around those trends, it will be great. And the sources, it depends of where you are at. But mostly I will go first to your ecosystem. I will apply to these competitions, depending what is the stage of your business. And then I will will look also to the impact investment networks, which are also growing very well in the last couple of 5 years.
Okay, that's all very interesting, Miguel. And if you have any sources, any websites
Sure.
where the participants could go to, that'd be really great to share in the chat. I'm sure everyone would really much appreciate that. Thank you. Just going through the questions here. Okay, there's someone asking Luis Nelson about starting a tourist info kiosk to sell refreshments and tours. He's asking for examples in Africa where this business model already exists. I don't know if maybe Stella, any one of the entrepreneurs that you're working with, have something like that, an example that maybe can be shared with Luis. I'm not sure where in Africa, but.
Yeah, okay. We will not have something specifically to that right now, but maybe I can ask Luis a question. So does he think that is needed? Is it solving a certain problem at this time? Is it a solution for these current times? Or he could actually look for problems that are really happening at this time. If travel is at standstill, how can we still promote tourism in Africa when travel is at a standstill? There are very many brilliant ideas. Maybe he should start selling virtual tours. People are in lockdown. People are on their laptops, on their phones. Maybe he doesn't even have to set up a kiosk for refreshments because tourists won't be coming. We don't know when they're coming back, but they'll be watching from their phones to see his new place, to see his strategic location. So we have to look at all those things. And before even we look at other models, right now, we don't even know which model has worked and hasn't worked. We are just looking at what models are going to work for us in these changing times. Yes.
And Luis, actually,
I'm hoping I've answered somehow. I'm seeing you're smiling. Maybe he has an answer. Yours?
No, I loved it. I just was thinking of one of our partners in South Africa, which designed a community experience and created basically an aggregation point for social enterprises, craft makers, and experience providers close to national parks. So there would be a go-to kiosk, if you want, for people to come and offer their social products and services. So you're more of a platform for them to tap into these different experiences and products that are offered by the community, which you aggregate and offer to the tourists. But Stella is very much on point. Does it solve a problem right now? You can argue about that. But in the future, potentially, yes. So keep on going. And that's just my ad.
great. Just looking at other questions here. There's some interesting statements. Not all are questions.
I followed that a little bit, Veronica. So it started from with Mare Fahoudi from Turkey, and he said that he did his master thesis and that he found out that the social entrepreneurship is mostly focused on the founder, and that it is very difficult because these people, this was the next from different people answered and said, also Miha Loga said that it is a kind of mentality. This is challenging. And I can understand what they are discussing. And I would like to discuss this maybe also with Miguel. If you have experiences like what they are discussing here, I think people who are starting a social enterprise are strongly with the heart by by their work or in their work. And I can understand, and I also have some experiences like that, that it is maybe more difficult to get in a cooperation with them, or that they take money from outside because they think it is much better if they do everything on their own. Do you have any experiences? Maybe we can talk a little bit about this from your perspective. I get some feedback here that this is exactly the point what Marve Fahudi, I hope I pronounce it right, is talking about.
Yeah, I think it depends on the personality, right? But there's all kind of sort of people, including myself there. But I feel like many times, I mean, just to be give you a account of myself, I also started a business. I raised $2 million before my 30s, for instance. And one of the main things of the entrepreneurs, many times you get, you fall in love of your solution instead of the problem, right? And sometimes it's really, really hard to let it go, you know, and sometimes you are immature, as I was, or I am, I don't know. Or sometimes you are not wise enough to understand that until you hit the market, and again, it's very hard there. So that you have to be humble enough. But in the other hand, as you learn, or as you know other people, you understand that innovation is about people, and innovation is about systems, right? So as long as you can create value for your business, for yourself, for the customer, and for your ecosystem, you are in the right path, right? And as long as you can validate that every day, little by little, and you have a laser focus on that, you will learn a lot. And as many of you say, like, you will be pivoting and you will learning more. I mean, you will be learning more on this. And then it's about changing yourself, right? Because that's all about when you talk about entrepreneurship, and especially social entrepreneurship. That's this process of creating value, you know, and how you capture that value, how to deliver that value, and how you actually share that value to everybody. I think that's the most powerful. But it would never happen as long, you know, you are not able and willing to learn, I think.
I really like that when you said people fell in love with the solution instead of looking at the problem. I think it was exactly what Stella said before to this other person who wants to create a kiosk. So is it really a problem at the moment we are focusing on or not? Yeah? And I think what you said is hitting the market on the one hand, going out very early with a prototype, and looking at the reaction of people is maybe one thing that is very helpful, but also being in a network, or having, let's say, support from others, and looking at your business model, peer-to-peer reviews, things like that could be helpful also in this early stage where you are very, let's say, in love with what you are doing, because it's coming from the heart. I can understand that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So wise words for all the entrepreneurs connecting today. Thank you so much. And actually, the event is coming to an end, unfortunately, but there's so many active comments in the chat, and I hope that anyone who wants to connect with any of the participants or the speakers do write their names or their LinkedIn contact details in the chat. We'll leave it open during the Q&A session for the Social Entrepreneurship Competition. So it seems like today was really a beautiful community of people coming together and sharing their experiences. And hopefully this is the first of many, and hopefully we can continue linking, learning, and creating together. So thank you all so much for being here today. It's been a pleasure to hear from all the panelists. It's been a pleasure from everyone who's sharing their contact details. And I'll hand it over to Joost to carry forward the questions for the competition. Everyone is welcome to apply. And we've shared the link. Maybe we can share it again just in case, because it got lost. That would be great. And thank you.